Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of hatching a madcap plan to close the border after refusing to rule out the measure in a television interview with the BBC's Andrew Marr on Sunday morning. The veteran journalist asked the SNP leader, "It does look as though Scotland might exit the lockdown in a slightly different way with different regulations or rules than England. In those circumstances, I know that you like questions about borders. Do you have the power to close the border, if you need to?" "I don't have the power to close borders, but these are discussions of course we want to continue to have with the UK government." Nicola Sturgeon. Sturgeon replied, "I don't have the power to close borders, but these are discussions of course we want to continue to have with the UK government." And on this question of will Scotland do things differently, not for the sake of it, we won't. Only if the evidence and our judgment tells us that is necessary. Now that would mean, if, and it is an if, the UK government took decisions that I thought were premature in terms of coming out of the lockdown, then clearly I would want to make sure Scotland did what I judged was best to protect the population. She added, "But the virus doesn't respect borders or boundaries and people travel freely across different parts of the UK. And that's why I think it has been important as well as for the simplicity of messages to have as much consistency across the UK as possible, and I think that's still the starting point. But we all have to take decisions that we judge to be right. It's not political in any way, shape or form." A UK government spokesman said there had been no discussions with Holyrood over the border. Scotland's Health Secretary Jean Freeman claimed the First Minister had actually been referring to international borders but then refused to rule out the possibility of trying to shut the border, only adding to the confusion. The suggestion has enraged critics, with Scottish Liberal Democrat leader Willie Rennie warning, "The First Minister should have crushed this madcap suggestion at the first time of asking." But the fact the Health Secretary failed to crush it at the second time of asking is extraordinary. "I can't believe they are seriously considering this." Choking off the supply lines for food, drink and essential supplies or the flow of key and essential workers back and forth would cause massive harm. Scottish Conservative leader Jackson Carlaw added, "Nicola Sturgeon must know that loose talk from a minority government about shutting the border at Berwick is unhelpful and that any such action would cause further damage to jobs and our economy. Rash statements suggesting such a possibility are irresponsible and can only spread wider alarm." Last week, Sturgeon sparked anger after announcing plans for lifting the coronavirus lockdown in Scotland. This was in direct contrast to the UK government, which has remained tight-lipped on any exit strategy, warning it is too early to announce such plans. In a thinly veiled dig at Downing Street, Sturgeon called for an adult conversation with the public as she published a document on Thursday about easing the lockdown in Scotland. Mr. Johnson has returned to work after completing his recovery from coronavirus, and delivered an impassioned statement to the nation outside 10 Downing Street this morning. He promised the maximum possible transparency and sharing with the public his calculations over the easing of lockdown restrictions. The Prime Minister said he was not in a position to say when or how the measures would be relaxed but warned that the fight against COVID-19 is now at the point of maximum risk. Mr. Johnson told the nation, "We simply cannot spell out now how fast or slow or even when those changes will be made, though clearly the government will be saying much more about this in the coming days," he said. "I want to serve notice now that these decisions will be taken with the maximum possible transparency. I want to share all our working and our thinking, my thinking, with you, the British people.